Good evening, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure once again to be here with you tonight. For those of you who don't know me, who happen to know me tonight, my name is Waterford Mondesir, aka My Desire. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. We have a special guest joining us, someone seeking to shape the future of Rockland County. Please welcome Mr. Mike Parietti, who's running for Rockland County Executive. How are you tonight?
Good, Rutherford. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm so glad and happy to be with you tonight. How's everything?
Oh, very good, very good. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm very I'm really happy to have this opportunity to talk to your listeners and tell them about myself and my campaign for Rockland County Executive.
How was your day going?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been
Okay.
very busy. You know, the election's coming up soon, so a lot of things to do. You know.
I know everything. Before we start with the interview, the listeners would like to know a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Mike Parietti, and from the get-go, I'm running for Rockland County Executive. I'm running as an independent. The incumbent Republican's running for a fourth four-year term.
Okay.
The Democratic Party did not field a candidate, but I'm running. I'm a Democrat, but I'm running on an independent line
Okay.
because when there was no Democrat on the line, we decided the only other option left was to run as an independent. So that's
Independent.
what we're doing.
Okay.
Right. But I was born and raised here in Rockland County. I went to Suffern High School.
Okay.
I came from a large family, 8 brothers and sisters. I was an Eagle Scout. I was a 4-time Rockland County wrestling champion. After high school, I went on to the military academy up at West Point.
Okay.
I was captain of the wrestling team up there as well. And upon graduation, I was commissioned as second lieutenant.
Okay.
I served in the 10th Mountain Infantry Division as a platoon leader
Oh.
and company executive officer, acting commander. I was airborne ranger qualified, and I rose to the rank of captain.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, so
Congrats.
I did about 5 years on active duty.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Yeah, no
Mhm.
problem. Thank you.
Okay.
And then following that, I had a career in the biotech and pharmaceutical industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a master's of biotechnology from Penn State University. But the key thing here is that about more than 20 years ago, I went to my father came home from the firehouse. He's a volunteer firefighter,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I heard at the firehouse there's a big meeting going on down in Rampo Town Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go see what it's all about? So I made that fateful decision to go to that meeting. And when I got there, I just met a lot of concerned citizens who were really worried about what's going on in Ramapo.
Mm-hmm.
And we all got together and we realized that we had no choice but to organize ourselves politically to regain our fair share of representation. I mean, what was going on, we realized is that as the block vote from the ultra-Orthodox community got bigger and bigger,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
both parties were just trying to get their vote and
Yeah.
ignoring everybody else, right? So we realized we had to organize ourselves to try to get our representation back. So anyway, we formed a group called Preserve Ramapo. We started to run candidates on that independent line.
Mhm.
I ran several times myself. I ran for supervisor of Ramapo twice against Christopher St. Lawrence, and I ran for county legislature. I ran for town council. So I've run for office several times. As a matter of fact, I remember I came here in 2019.
You came here before?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as I pulled in, I had flashback. Oh, yeah, this is
At the time, it was called a different name.
Oh, was it?
Now
Okay.
we are Groove FM.
Okay, I can't remember. what it
Yeah.
was called.
So, before we dive into some key issues,
Mhm.
why don't you tell us what got you involved in politics, though?
Yeah, I mean, it was that first meeting when I went to this meeting, and I talked to these other concerned citizens. We realized
Mm-hmm.
we had to organize ourselves politically, and so that's what we did. And we did
Okay.
so many different things. We did protests. We testified at public hearings.
Mm-hmm.
We did petition drives to force referendums, and we did lawsuits. We did. I was a pro se litigant
Mm-hmm.
in cases against the town where we didn't have the money to hire an attorney, so we did it ourselves in court, and we had some. We won some, we lost some, but the main thing that we realized from all of the things that we did was
Mhm.
that in order to regain our fair share of representation, we needed to set aside our differences on the national issues,
Exactly. Mhm.
right, and unite our efforts and our vote on the more important local issues, right. That's what it was, because what it is we're dividing ourselves on Republican and Democrat.
Democrat. However, we could have had the same vision.
Right. And you see, we divide ourselves, and the block vote, they can move to either side. And so they conquer. We divide, they conquer. So I said, okay, you know what? We need to do something different here. We need to vote together, on a line. That's how we started this independent party line. And my campaign for county executive is essentially an extension of that same theme, right? Because the incumbent Republican, Ed Day, he's going to get all the block vote. He's going to get all that vote. I'm not getting any of it. So the only way I can win is I need to get a broad coalition of people from one end of the political spectrum to the other to put aside the differences and vote together. And I think that can happen because the issues involved are so potent, right? We have a lot of really difficult issues that we're confronting, from overdevelopment, some areas. We have illegal housing and unsafe housing. We also have fair housing. There's housing discrimination, and a lot of the new housing that's built is segregated for one community over another.
Okay, so talking about housing, affordable housing has become one of the toughest challenges in Rockland County. What practical solution would you propose to the balance development and affordability?
That it's a very tough issue. I can't deny it. I'm not going to say I have all the answers on that, but we really need to focus on it. One of the problems, of course, is housing discrimination. Right? A lot of the new housing that's built and when it's finished and everybody moves in, it's people from one sect, from the Orthodox or Hasidic sect sometimes, and no one else is allowed in the building. Right? This is housing discrimination, but no one will do anything about it because everyone is afraid of the political power. In that group. So that's why if I can get a broad coalition of people to support me on this issue, I could be victorious. And when I got in, a couple things I would do. First of all, we need to get good attorneys in the county executive's office or the county attorney's office. I'd like to build a separate unit of attorneys that are well versed in housing discrimination, fair housing, and issues like that, so that we'll be ready to act to take whatever legal remedies we have to file suits if we see housing discrimination going on. I think that is a really important element. I want to get a real strong human rights commissioner in. In the past, the human rights commissioners have just been people who were they put them there because they knew they would keep their mouth shut. Right? We need somebody who's going to open their mouth and really fight for these issues and work with our attorneys to file lawsuits when we see housing discrimination or take action. Because that's one element of it, right? We can't have housing that's being built for just one community because then the other community doesn't have anywhere to live and they eventually get pushed out, right? So that's one issue. The other thing is we have to try to be as creative as we possibly can in coming up with solutions for the affordable housing issue. Now, I know that it's very difficult. There's a few ways to do it. One is you can do like a private-public partnership where you find a developer who's willing to, if you incentivize him with some federal money or state money.
Like subsidizing.
Right. Well, if you give them a certain amount of funding, then they'll agree to, when they build a building, to have so many affordable housing units in it, right? But from what I've been told, that usually yields very few units that are actually affordable, right? The other thing is adaptive reuse. You have a building that was built for one thing and it's no longer being used for that anymore. You can renovate it and make it into housing. That's another way to do it, but the problem is that also has a lot of issues too with the cost, and then you end up with only a small number of affordable housing units, right?
Okay. So
I'll just finish saying there are some new technologies and new products on the housing market that I think we need to really open up our minds, think outside the box, and maybe there's this modular housing, prefabricated housing that's cheaper, it's easy to maintain, you can get more units put together. In Maui, they had the fires out in Maui in Hawaii a couple of years ago. They had or a year or two ago.
Okay.
They had these fires that burned down all the housing, and they desperately needed affordable housing quickly. And they went outside the box, and they got this new modular housing, brought it in quickly, got it in place, and people were able to start living there in like 8 months. So that's just one example. It brings me to another important part of my campaign is the fact that I'm not taking any donations from anybody other than private citizens. Right? I'm not taking any donations from any business interest or corporate interest or commercial enterprise, anything, none whatsoever, because then you are beholden to these powerful, entities, and they may not want affordable housing for everybody. You know what I mean? There's always some conflict of interest. I'm not going to have any of that. Mm-hmm. The incumbent that day, he's got like $900,000 in his campaign account from a blizzard of different entities, banks, real estate, developers, builders, data centers, political action committees. And so and it all comes with strings attached. And so you never really know what's going on behind the scenes. Who's really getting taken care of, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And that may be why we can't get some of these really
maybe it's
obvious
bias
solutions.
It can be biased.
Absolutely. All sorts of things. Whereas I'm not going to have that issue. There's going to be no hidden bias. There's going to be no strings attached to my administration. And I'm not going to get any of that block vote coming. That's going to, my opponent got that last time. He's going to get it this time.
But I remember your incumbent. He promised to go only for a second time, and then the third time,
Yep.
now fourth time.
Yep.
So, have you ever had some kind of conversation with the Democratic Party, and that led you to become independent?
Mm-hmm. Well, great question. I mean, when I got involved in this, we realized we needed an independent party, because in Ramapo, both parties were pandering to that block vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we learned was you need to have an independent party, and then what you can possibly do is combine the votes you get on that independent line, right?
Yeah.
Because some people get it, some people understand, they're willing to go off their major party line and vote on this independent line on these really important issues, right?
Yeah.
But you can combine those votes with one of the major party lines, then you can overcome the block vote. You see, You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. And the thing is, I actually helped Ed Day get in back in 2013. I ran on an independent line with him. We did exactly what I explained to you.
Mm-hmm.
We ran a slate of candidates.
Yeah.
He was on that line with us. We had no chance of winning, right? Or very little chance of winning. But the votes that we got him on that line put him over the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he beat the block vote, and he won, right? When he got in, he just kind of very quickly started to forget about us, and he went on. And now he went over and he got the block vote, right? So, the thing is, and in this case, okay, and this brings me to another really important issue, is that, right, Ed Day said he was only going to run for 2 terms, okay? And he said something like, if I can't get this, county fixed in 2 terms, and you got to get rid of me. But then, of course,
that's what was told.
Right. Then, of course, he said towards the end of his second term, he started saying, you know what, I think I really need to run for a 3rd term, because he said, because I want to be in a position to veto the redistricting plan of the Rockland County legislature, right? Because that's redistricted every 10 years. So that redistricting was going to come up in that 3rd term. So he said, and he kind of played us on that good, because we were very concerned about the redistricting. We thought it was already done unfairly, but it could be a lot worse, right? That's what we were worried about. So anyway, so he told us that. And then, so what the thing is, when he got in, after his 3rd election was over, we realized he'd gotten all the vote from the block, the Hasidic area, right? And shortly thereafter, he, instead of vetoing an unfair map, because the map of the legislature that they just recently redid is extremely discriminatory. People of color, communities of color, were cheated out of every shred of representation. And I know it for a fact, because I pored over that map with a fine-tooth comb, and I can see what they did. And they broke the law at the local, the state, and the federal level.
So, talking about the redistricting plan, I believe that you filed against against that plan. So, why did you decide to do that?
Because, first of all, I knew this was going to be an important redistricting session, right?
Yeah.
And so I mobilized a lot of people to write emails and go to the public hearings and stuff. They call them public forum at first.
Yeah.
And say, hey, look, we want our representation back. We want fair representation. You see, when it comes to redistricting, you're supposed to unite communities of interest, right?
Correct.
So that they can combine their voting power, and then they can exert influence on the outcome of an election, right?
Correct.
Gerrymandering is essentially when you take certain communities and you, instead of uniting them so they can concentrate their vote and elect candidates of their choice that will represent their community, you chop it into pieces. And you take those pieces and connect it to other areas with different communities of interest that then essentially cancel out their vote, right? Because there's more voters from a different community than there. You see, and that's exactly what they did in the Rockland County Legislature. In central Rockland, there's a big area of communities of color where it's majority, minority population, right? And I looked at this very carefully. I had a mapping tool that showed you what the different what the demographics were and what the population numbers were and everything. According to the Voting Rights Act, this area in central Rockland should have been carved into 2 legislative districts comprised primarily of people of color, communities of color, who then they would have 2 districts where essentially people of color decide for themselves who they want to represent them.
Exactly.
Right?
They merged them, right?
Well, what they did was they took this area, and instead of making 2 districts out of it, they chopped it up into 5 pieces.
Oh my God! They subdivided it.
Right. So each piece, so this big area was cut into 5 pieces, and each piece was attached to an area of white majority population. Right. So each piece could not win the election because, and in some cases they were attached to Hasidic areas, some cases they were attached to just white areas in Clarkstown. But it's worse than anything you would see in Mississippi, right, or places like that where it's notorious for that kind of stuff. It's really bad. And so when I saw all this, I tried to get people to go to the public hearings, but they had some cute little law that they passed right before the redistricting period started, that made it so that they could easily prevent you from speaking at the public hearing. So somebody, and this is a violation of the First Amendment, like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But this is crazy. So we go to this public hearing about this map that's blatantly gerrymandered to deprive not only people of color, like certain Jewish sects were deprived of their fair share of representation, like the modern Orthodox, right? There's an area in northern Rampo. It's 2 villages next side by side that if you put the 2 of them together, it's exactly the right amount of population to have 1 district. They would have had their fair share of representation as the modern Orthodox. It's a suburban area, right? But instead, they took those 2 villages, separated them, and attached each one to a very high density Hasidic village, right? Who have different political interests than they do.
Correct.
And so their vote got canceled out too. And this happened in other places throughout the county, primarily suburban areas that are less densely populated were connected to high density Hasidic areas where their vote canceled out everybody else's vote.
You've become the new county executive. What would be? I know you already expressed your feeling regarding this issue, but do you think you can make some implementation in this regard? At
this point, probably not, because I filed the lawsuit. I took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, right? Unfortunately, the courts are highly politicized. They essentially just ignored me.
Oh wow!
They said, you don't have any political power. We're not interested. But the final. I'll just finish off the thing the final thing is at this public hearing, the so-called public hearing, they wouldn't let us speak. They said, oh well, if you don't like the map, just send us an email. Right?
What? Yeah. But as per the name, it says public hearing.
I know. Trust me.
Literally,
it's unbelievable. We're sitting there, and so. But here's what's crazy. They let their expert, the one that they're paying, right? They let him speak about the map. Now, this is another blatant First Amendment violation. You can't let a person with one point of view speak and people with another point of view not speak. But anyway, so the point is I'm sitting there with leaders of the NAACP and other people of color, and they're getting cheated by the map wholesale, right? And this expert's up there talking about how wonderful the map is and how fair it is, and it's all a lie, right? And the legislators are sitting there going, oh, yes, and they're congratulating themselves on how great the map is and how fair it is when it's the complete opposite. But the people that are getting disenfranchised by the map are sitting there and they're told, don't open your mouth. I mean, it's really ridiculous.
What was the point?
Of the public hearing. I know. Yeah. I mean, trust me, though, the case law says that you can't prevent people from speaking at a public hearing unless you have a really, really, really good reason, and that reason has to be something that would undermine the purpose of the public hearing. Letting people speak about the map is not going to undermine the purpose of the public hearing, which is to hear what people think about the map. I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway, at this point, it's because I took it to the Supreme Court and they wouldn't hear the case. There's really, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do until the next reapportionment, which would be after the 2030 census. They have every 10 years, they do a census, and then you reapportion the map on that. We'll just have to get organized again. And if I were to be elected, I would only run for 2 terms. Okay. Ed Day made the same promise and broke it, right? But the thing is, I think I have a pretty well-worn reputation as a person who's...
Stick to your words?
If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
You're going to do it.
And I think
that's great. That's great.
Trust me on that. And so the point is, if I were to run and was reelected, the next redistricting would take place under my executiveship. Right?
His favor, or
well, what it is, he could have vetoed it, and he had enough votes in the legislature at that time to uphold his veto. Right?
Okay.
That would have pushed it back to the drawing board. That had to start over again, and you could have renegotiated and tried to get some concessions, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't get the right concessions, you could have vetoed it again. But he just rolled over. But I'm pretty sure he cut a deal where he would sign the map, whatever map they wanted, and part of that deal. And this is what I read. I believe, I have no evidence of this, but I know the way things work here. Pretty sure that when they said, Ed, sign the map, and guess what? You will not face an opponent in the next election. We'll make sure no one runs against you, right? Because they have this power, the machine. The two parties are merging together, right? And I honestly believe that's why he signed it, and that's why no one would run against him.
Since you say I think, which means there is some doubt about it. But if that were the case, I believe it would have been a rigged system.
Of course, yeah. Well, there were plenty of prominent Democrats who could have challenged him and should have. He's running for a 4th term. I mean, come on.
That's true.
And they wouldn't step up. And then also there were Republicans that I know for a fact wanted to run for county executive. They could have challenged him in a primary, but they were told, no, you can't do that. The machine says you can't do these things, right? And so there was a guy who tried to buck the system. He was a political outsider. He had recently retired from law enforcement. He tried to run for the Democratic nomination. He tried to get the signatures, but it's a very difficult process. And unfortunately, I was trying to help him get the signatures. He came up short, and he didn't get on the ballot. So at that point, the petitioning period was over for the major political parties. The only remaining option was to run someone as an independent. So because the petitioning period is still going, the petition period is after the major party. So that was our only option. So we went and got the signatures for me to run as an independent. So that's how I'm in a race. It's a 2-way race. There's no Democrat on the ballot. I'm a Democrat, but I'm on an independent line. I'm on row E. It's called the good government line. It's not hard to find. I'm just down on the 5th row down.
Yours is not gonna be writing. You just
it's not a write-in. I'm on the ballot.
Select. Okay.
You'll see me on the ballot.
If you were to be elected county executive, what would be your most important priorities?
Well, in a nutshell, it would be honest, fair, efficient government. Right. I think we need fairness for all different communities. We need efficiency. We can't have powerful special interests interfering and getting what they want at other people's expense. So that's generally, I want good government, right? That's the main thing. Beyond that, there are some of the priorities I talked about. We need to find a solution to the affordable housing issue and the fair housing issue. We need to curtail some of the overdevelopment. In some parts of Ramapo, they're just building high density without any regard whatsoever for the impact on the infrastructure, on our water, on our roads, on the sewer systems. We need to find a way to curtail that overdevelopment. And in general, I would just say corruption. We need to eliminate corruption from the county executives, from county government in general, and to ensure that everything is done fairly for everyone. I mean, and the other thing I would say, too, is we need to keep our economy going, right? And I would like to form a small business incubator, right, where we have some space somewhere where we can... we need to tap into our own people's ingenuity and creativity. Right?
Correct.
So, anyone has an idea, we need to help them. Okay, let's try to see if we can make that commercially viable, and then build upon that. Because if we can have a constant crop of new businesses coming from our own communities, this over the long term, that can really help drive the economy.
So what you just expressed, I'm not sure if that's your vision, but is it overall your vision for Rockland County in the next 4 years? If elected. Yes.
I mean, that would be part of my vision, right? I mean, we need to keep the economy going. We need to create jobs here, and so the more revenue we generate sales tax and everything. It keeps the whole system viable. in terms of like industry,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should focus on smart industry. Like I think that Rockland County, we should try to build a biotech hub here, right? Like Westchester has a lot of biotech.
Mm-hmm.
So does New Jersey. We're right in between the two of them with the thruway connecting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a little bit Regeneron, which is a big biotech from Westchester.
That's in after Whitelands, or
Yeah, somewhere
that's somewhere there
in Westchester, right?
Mm-hmm.
They recently bought the old Avon building down in downtown Suffern. That's a big deal, right? Because
Yeah.
if we can get them to start, expanding here in Rockland County, that's huge, right? So I would try to build upon that, and so we have, because those are good jobs. You can create good jobs, and then we can work with our local educational institutions to try to help, develop a curriculum that will give people the training to work in those industries. So we definitely need to keep an eye on the economy and to keep us moving forward.
What is your leadership style, and how does it keep you apart from your opponent?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been involved in so many different groups and organizations over the years. I mean, as a kid, I was involved in athletics. I was in the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. I went to West Point, where you have to learn to interact with everybody at the academy. I was in the military, which is a whole other organization, where you're accomplishing very difficult missions with under adverse conditions. After that, I was in corporate America. I had to learn how to work within those groups. And then for the past 20 years, I've been working with all sorts of different people on the local level to try to deal with all the issues that we face. The point is, I have a broad array of experience working with people in trying to get things done in adverse conditions, right?
Okay.
So I've learned from that. You have to be open-minded.
Yep.
You have to be approachable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be proactive, right? And these are all things that I think my leadership style embodies. I'm willing to sit down with anybody from anywhere on any point on the political spectrum to get their input and let's try to figure out. Let's be collaborative. Let's try to figure out. That's one thing I've learned a long time ago. If you have a good idea, don't keep it to yourself. Tell somebody else, and then
Share it.
right, then it will be honed into a really good idea. That's feasible. That's workable, right? So we need to do that. We need to get
something
input.
that's sustained as well.
Right, actually sustainable, important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to do that. We need to bring people in. I'm like that. I want to work with everybody. I want to hear what everybody has to say.
Okay.
And let's try to find the best path forward, and then let's go out and figure out a way to implement those solutions.
So I'll feel bad if I don't ask you that question today. Rockland County is going so fast, and there are some small entrepreneurs who are unfortunately suffering. How do you plan to attract new businesses while supporting local entrepreneurs?
Well, that's a good question. We need to create a friendly atmosphere for business in Rockland County. And I think, so we need to look at like I said, if we can create a small business incubator, anything where we can attract, because not only do we want to try to get our own people to be creative, and
Correct.
we want to create an environment where new businesses will come here. And that's one of the things too, if we can work with the local educational institutions so they can develop curriculum to people get the proper training for certain industries, we can attract those industries or businesses here to Rockland County. And the other thing too, I think we should create some unique events here in Rockland. Like one little vision I've had is we should create some kind of a competitive event here. We've got a great mix of geography and culture. We've got the mountains, we got the river, and we got like a lot of cultural areas. I think you could have some kind of a thing like a 3-legged competition where you have a one bike leg that goes through the county.
Like a race, or
something like that, right? And you could have it like you could have 2 levels. One would be the mass participation level, where everybody can, be a part of the bike leg, right? And then you'd have also a professional competitive class where you could attract people. If you come up with a unique event that's interesting and exciting, like something to do with the mountains, the river, like a 3-legged, kind of like a triathlon, but different, I think you could bring people in from around the metropolitan area. We've got a lot of people in the New York City metropolitan area. Bring them in from around the country and even internationally, because people want to be a part of something unique like that. And that's just one idea.
I agree.
Let's use what we have
Yeah.
to create events that will bring tourism in, bring people in, and make life interesting for everybody who's here.
So before people can come, which it requires, we have to be safe, and then the area should be in good standard. So recently we have some incident where people got shot, unfortunately,
Yeah.
in Rockland County.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you strengthen your relationship with law enforcement and residents,
Mm-hmm.
and also ensuring especially by ensuring security to all the people living there?
Yeah, I mean, I know. I recently heard about this shooting. The
Mhm.
FedEx driver was shot and killed. I mean, it's
And yeah, recently a young teenage boy
yeah.
unfortunately got shot.
It
So-
does concern me because I've heard
Mhm.
this has been happening more and more frequently in the last
Therefore,
several
it's
years.
gonna impact our Rockland County reputation, right?
Absolutely.
So for someone to come in or to visit, which means
Mhm.
we have to be safe. So therefore, what is your stance on that?
Well, I definitely believe in community policing. You know, we want to try to strengthen the relationships and,
Mhm.
and the contacts between local leaders
Mhm.
in the community and law enforcement, so
Okay.
we can get input to find out how we can reduce this crime or eradicate it. I mean, I that is a really upsetting thing when I heard about that shooting in particular, but others as well. And so I think the way to do it is really working with members of the community and law enforcement. Let's communicate, and so we can figure out how to keep our communities safe and thriving.
Okay, you have 2 more minutes, right?
Do I? Yeah.
Because the more we talk, I feel that more questions
Sure. Mhm.
are coming. So we usually say that Rockland County is the most diverse counties in New York, right?
Mhm.
And you just stated as well.
Mhm.
How do you plan to ensure that all communities, let's say African American, we have some Caribbean population,
Mhm.
and how do you plan to make sure they have a voice in your administration if elected?
Mhm. Well, I think the only way I can get elected is
Mhm.
I'm going to need a broad coalition of people from all those communities
Mm-hmm.
voting together, so
Okay.
we can overcome the block. We can and we can get elected through a broad coalition of people, right? So that's going to be my incentive,
Mhm.
right? That's what's going to get me elected. So I really want to be in tune with all the different needs and attitudes and perspectives from all these different communities, and I would have an open door to anybody and everybody, and no, that one thing I believe in is fair treatment for all, preferential treatment for none. And so we need, we all need to
no
work together.
favoritism whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's, I think my whole campaign embodies that, because the only way you can get elected is with a broad coalition of everybody, right?
Correct.
And
Mhm.
and I'm not taking donations from any special interests that would distort public policy.
Yeah, that's
And
again,
so
mhm.
we need to sort of work together. And so I'm willing to, whatever kind of structure we need to come up with to facilitate exactly what you described, community boards or groups, or a way of having some kind of a structure or a method for these communities to come together, to communicate with each other, to talk things out and figure out a way forward that's beneficial for everybody. I am totally open to that.
So many people in our community care deeply about education
Mm-hmm.
and immigration.
Mm-hmm.
So how would your policy reflect them in terms of by including them basically?
Mm-hmm.
In-
Right. Well, I definitely think the educational issue is a very important issue,
Mhm.
because I believe that every child deserves a quality education.
Mhm.
And I think what's going on in the East Rampo School District is really abominable. I
Mhm.
mean, and I that's not directly under my purview as the county executive, but I will use the full strength of the bully pulpit. I will
Mhm.
not be silent on things that I see going on, particularly in the public schools, because it's so important. And I would also advocate at the state level,
Mhm.
for ensuring that all children receive a quality education. And I am against diverting funds that should go to public schools to private schools. There's a lot of money that's being given out to private schools that are not necessarily even teaching a secular education.
Mhm.
And this undermines the whole fabric of our society.
Correct.
So I would fight all communities to deserve a fair share of resources, and in particular a quality education. So I would do whatever I could, work with whatever groups I have to. And I did. Over the years, I have worked to, in the fight for Eastern Alabama schools. I have not been a leader in that effort because I was leading in other areas. But I have worked with them, and I would continue to do that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, we're currently with Mike Parietti. Parietti is a candidate running for Rockland County Executive. We're having him on the studio right now, and we're talking about politics and about his candidacy as well. So, Rockland County, like much of New York, right, faces challenges such as high property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big subject, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, how do you intend to address this this kind of issue? Because a lot of people are really sad. I'm not gonna say sad, but they feel they overstress and they overwork just to pay bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do you plan to maintain a transparency and also accountability? Because some people, they are overpaying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think you said two key words: accountability and transparency. I believe in full accountability, full transparency, and fiscal responsibility. So I'm not going to go any kind of reckless spending sprees from the government side. That's going to increase people's taxes.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Okay.
But that said, it's a tough thing because the operating cost of the county continues to creep up, just with inflation and everything else. So we need to try to keep an even keel and keep an eye on the books carefully. And so that's not going to be. I'm not going to do anything to drive up property taxes because I'm embarking on reckless governmental spending projects. How to keep the property taxes down is tricky. One thing is, the current county executive has said, he's kept the county property, the county portion of the property tax, he's kept it steady for the past few years, and partly because the sales tax has continued to go up and up and up. Through inflation, right? So our sales tax revenue continues to climb. It's bringing in a lot more money because we're paying more for goods and services, so we pay a higher percentage of sales tax.
Correct.
The one thing I would say is right now the county gives very little of that money back to the towns, right? Because the money is coming from the towns, right? Because the businesses in those towns are generating the sales that create, that take the sales tax, which most of it goes to the county. I would be open to increasing the level of the percentage of property tax, sales tax that comes into the county and pushing it back out to the towns so they can use it the way they want. And you see, because the towns most of the property tax we pay are from the town or the schools, right? And so if you push a higher percentage of the sales tax revenue back to the towns, they can use that money how they see fit, and possibly they could use it to reduce the taxes.
One of the government in Florida said it's really unfair for someone to pay property taxes while they spend their entire life paying mortgage. And then, do you share the same idea?
Well, I mean, I know I can relate to that just because our house. I live in the house I grew up in, right?
Yeah.
But my parents bought that house. I think they bought it for like $22,000,
Wow.
Yeah, and they, I don't know how long it took them. They didn't have a lot of money back then, but I don't know how long it took them to pay it off. Probably quite a while. But now they've paid it off, and the property taxes are way, way more than the mortgage ever was. So I can relate to that. It's understandable. I mean, that's just the way of the world, The inflation and things drive up the cost of everything,
Okay. So before we wrap up, what message would you like to share directly with the Rockland County as they prepare to head to the polls? Do you have anything specific to share with them?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure they know that I'm running as an independent. I'm on row E, which is the fifth row down. It's called the Good Government Line. I'm easy to find on the ballot. It's a two-way race. There is no Democratic candidate. The only candidate on the ballot opposing me is the incumbent Ed Day, who's on the Republican line, and he's on the conservative line. So he's on two party lines. I'm on one just below him. So just make sure you know where I am on the ballot. You got to come down to the bottom of the ballot. It's just the fifth row down and find me there. And I would just say, look, I'm all about fairness for all communities, and my vision for Rockland is a place where people from all walks of life and all communities can come and work and thrive and prosper together in a spirit of harmony and mutual respect, and at the same time to feel safe in our homes and in our communities. And so that's my vision. And like I said, I believe in fair treatment for all, preferential treatment for none. We need to use whatever ingenuity we have within ourselves, or attract people with ingenuity or creative ideas to Rockland, so we continue to build our future, drive our economic engine. And the way to do that is to be open-minded and approachable and willing to work with anybody and everybody, and put on a fair basis for everyone. Like I said, I'm taking no donations from any entities other than private individuals. So there's going to be no hidden hand in my administration preventing me from doing what is obviously the right thing to do. If I think sometimes we have this frustration where we're like, why aren't they doing what they obviously should be doing? And it's because there's some deal behind the scenes where some special interest is getting something expensive everybody else. That's not going to happen in my administration. So anyway, I would love to get your vote. We definitely need to exercise your right to vote. The one thing I'll say about this is a real choice, because a lot of times in these elections you'll have two candidates from both major parties, and both of them are burdened down with all sorts of these donations from all sorts of entities with a conflict of interest, with what is in the best public interest, right?
They owe them before they even take office,
right? And they feel like they have to do this because the other guy's doing it, right? So they both this escalation of raising money, right? Well, because of this unique situation I'm in, there is no Democrat on the ballot, and no one else stepped forward to run. And I said, you know what? I'll run. I'm going to run on a good government basis, because I'm never going to take those kind of donations. I'm never going to have those conflicts of interest with what's doing the best thing for everybody, And so I said, whoa, this is an opportunity. We have to try this. And I think it's a rare opportunity for people that is never going to, I should say, it's probably not going to come again soon. In other words, you can either have big party, big money, business as usual politics on one side, or you can choose the exact opposite of that, which is honest, fair, efficient government, which is what I will bring. So that's the choice I believe you have. I think we don't want to let this opportunity pass us by. Let's go out to the polls. Please consider your vote carefully and vote what's in your best interest, and vote your conscience.
Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us at TOUCHE at Radio Go FM.
Thank you very much, brother, for having me, and I want to thank all your listeners for taking the time to hear me
I
out.
wish you the best of luck, and we're going to encourage our listeners as well to stay informed and get involved and make their voices heard. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to be with Mike. And kounya n'a rentré encore dans touche à tout, nous allons prendre une petite pause. Après ça, nous allons retourner tout de suite après. Pas oublier que brancher émission pour là, émission touche à tout, émission à caractère social, politique, économique et culturel qui passe chaque vendredi à partir de 6h jusqu'à 8h. Restez branchés.